Join us as we look back at previous investiture ceremonies honoring great Canadians. Watch the Order of Canada exclusively on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Su-Ling Ching, and I'm the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. I'm joined this morning by my co-presenter, Michael Curran, the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal, who you'll hear from later this morning. Welcome back to the last virtual Mayor's Breakfast of 2020. It has been great to be back with you through the end of 2020. I hope you were able to join us this morning for some virtual networking. It was so great to see so many familiar faces. The Ottawa Board of Trade and Ottawa Business Journal work together throughout the year to bring these events that inform, inspire, give you an opportunity to connect and realize new opportunities for your business and leadership growth. And this breakfast series is certainly one of the most well supported, with speakers that have ranged from corporate executives to big city mayors to renowned political leaders, all addressing matters of importance to our business community, which is why we feel it's so important to bring this series back in a new and safe format. So, may I say to Mayor Watson and your City Council colleagues, thank you for your partnership and leadership and for hosting the business community in the heart of Ottawa City Hall every month for these last several years, and especially during this time of challenge, change, and uncertainty. This morning, we are very excited to hear from Dr. Vera Etches, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, who will be interviewed by Mark Sutcliffe. For those of you on Twitter this morning, please note our hashtag is @MayorBeFast. As always, we wish to recognize our wonderful event sponsors. Our lead sponsor, Hydro Ottawa, Commissionaires Ottawa, the Westin Ottawa, Algonquin College, La Cité, Rogers Communication, RBC, Enbridge, Oakwood Designers and Builders, Royal LePage Commercial, Capital Office Interiors and Steelcase, Ottawa Senators Hockey Club, and the Centurion Conference and Event Center. It is only with these partnerships that our event series can happen. And now we have a message from this morning's presenting sponsor, Enbridge.
Merci, Su-Ling. Bonjour, Monsieur le Maire Watson, Dr. Etches, and distinguished guests. Je suis Jean-Benoît Trahan, Regional Director for Enbridge Gas Eastern Region, which includes our beautiful nation's capital, mais également la Direction générale de Gazifère, le distributeur de gaz naturel de la région d'Outaouais. Enbridge Gas is Canada's largest natural gas storage, transmission, and distribution company based in Ontario, with about 4,500 employees. We were formed through the amalgamation of Enbridge Gas Distribution and Union Gas in 2019, and combined we have 275 years of experience in providing safe, affordable, reliable service to almost 3.8 million customers, heating over 75% of Ontario homes in 355 municipalities and 21 First Nations communities across Ontario. You may know us as a utility, but what you may not know is we are also innovating to lead the transition to a low-carbon future by investing in clean technologies for heat and transportation, greening our gas supply with renewable natural gas and hydrogen, and helping residents and businesses conserve. We are proud to support Ottawa's Energy Evolution Plan today and for years to come. Le travail de transition énergétique est un effort collectif et important. Gazifère offre depuis quelques mois à tous ses clients l'opportunité d'utiliser du gaz naturel renouvelable, et Enbridge offre également depuis peu un programme où les consommateurs peuvent favoriser la transition des approvisionnements gaziers en Ontario en acceptant de payer volontairement un montant de 2 $ par mois. Nous vous invitons tous à évaluer ces opportunités pour vous, vos entreprises ou vos institutions, afin de permettre un déploiement le plus rapidement possible de ces grands projets de transition vers une économie faible en carbone. Since the start of the COVID pandemic, we have been working hard to continue to deliver the energy we all depend on now more than ever, while making significant changes to the way we do business in order to protect the health and safety of our employees, the public, and the communities where we live and work. This has been a very difficult year for many of us, from economic challenges to food scarcity and increased mental health concerns. We've all watched and heard as the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic continue to spread in our communities. As part of Enbridge's commitment to helping local community partners, Enbridge Gas employees and retirees, supported by the company's matching donation program, have once again demonstrated their tradition of giving by raising over $1.6 million for United Ways across our service area. And earlier this year, in recognition of the immediate need faced in many communities due to COVID-19, we advanced $300,000 in funding to United Way to support their response. Habituellement, dans la région d'Ottawa, nous avons un petit budget pour faire une fête de Noël avec les employés. Cette année, nous avons pris la décision de prendre ce budget et de le donner à Christie Lake pour répondre aux besoins plus importants des personnes en difficulté. And the unprecedented hardship faced by many people due to COVID-19 pandemic continues today. This includes food insecurity, rental and utility payment assistance for those experiencing employment disruptions due to COVID-19, as well as medical and health and mental health assistance and support. That's why, in addition to support for United Way, we've provided support to food banks, social service agencies, mental health organizations, first responders, healthcare providers, and others who provide relief to people most vulnerable to COVID-19's impacts. This crisis has given us the unique ability to see how immediately our contributions have impacted the various demographics supported by the United Way, from vulnerable populations such as the elderly to those experiencing mental health and addiction issues, persons with disabilities, and newcomers to our communities. And we're not alone. Many organizations and individuals have stepped up to support their communities through financial and in-kind contributions, retooling to provide essential safety equipment like masks and hand sanitizer, and finding new and innovative ways to deliver the services we all depend on safely in this new pandemic reality. And we are thankful for the support of government programs like the COVID-19 Energy Assistance Program, which is helping customers facing financial challenges manage their energy bills. Finally, on behalf of all of us at Enbridge Gas, a huge thank you to Mayor Watson, to the City of Ottawa, to frontline workers and public health authorities. Merci, merci beaucoup du fond du cœur for everything you do every day and for helping keep our communities healthy and vibrant. Thank you, merci beaucoup.
Now, if you'll join me in welcoming His Worship Mayor Jim Watson to the podium to provide his update from City Hall.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à ce petit déjeuner du maire virtuel ce matin. I want to welcome everyone to this virtual mayor's breakfast, the last of 2020. Thank you to our partners at the Ottawa Business Journal, of course, and the Ottawa Board of Trade, and everyone who has assisted in setting up this event virtually. A little later on, you'll have a chance to listen in on an interview with Mark Sutcliffe, conducted with Dr. Vera Etches, Medical Officer of Health for the City of Ottawa. Thank you, Dr. Etches, for participating in today's event, and thank you for the great work that you're doing. And thank you to those joining us on Rogers Television and via my Facebook page. Now, before we get to the interview, I want to give you an update regarding what's happening right here at City Hall. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a challenging and unique year, to say the least. The COVID-19 pandemic arrived in our community back in March, and I don't think anyone could have predicted the impact that would have on all aspects of our day-to-day lives. We can't see our family and friends as we used to, and that's hard for a lot of us. Many residents are working from home and aren't experiencing the social camaraderie we usually deal with when we're chatting with our colleagues. Some of our young residents are attending school at home and have had to adopt to learning in a new environment. Our local businesses have experienced many, many hardships. Our medical professionals and our frontline workers and our first responders have been working around the clock to protect all of us, and we thank them. And our vulnerable population face extraordinary challenges to protect themselves from the virus. It's been a challenging time, no question about that. But the positive side of this is the way we have all come together to support each other during this very difficult period, not just in Ottawa, but around the world. I see people supporting local businesses by ordering takeout or trying a product from a local shop. I see both residents and businesses reaching out to donate to local charities at a time where they need our support the most. And I see residents checking with their isolated neighbors to make sure that they are doing okay in their neighborhood. It's examples like these that make me very proud to be mayor of our city. I know many of us are looking forward to 2021 and a fresh start and putting 2020 behind them. But I ask, please don't let down your guard over the holiday period. We saw what happened after American Thanksgiving in the United States. The COVID numbers went through the roof. And although Ottawa's COVID-19 numbers are trending in the right direction recently, we've seen throughout the province that the virus is still very much in our communities. We can't let up at this point. I know that the holiday season traditionally means big gatherings with family and friends and neighbors for many of us, but I ask you to please follow the advice of Dr. Etches and our medical professionals throughout the holidays and limit your personal contacts. This will be critical to ensure that our COVID numbers don't go up in the new year. As I said, we've been doing very well. Look at the challenges they're facing in Toronto and Peel and York. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have come so far, and I want to take this opportunity to thank our residents for the commitment to flattening the curve. Staying on the topic of holidays, I want to encourage you to support local businesses when you're doing your holiday shopping. This is a great chance to check out and discover some of the incredible and one-of-a-kind shops and services we have here and all of our main streets from different parts of the city. We have so many exceptional restaurants, wonderful boutique shops, and unique services that would welcome your support. And as fellow business people, you know what I'm talking about. I also encourage residents to consider supporting a local charity during the holiday session if you have the means to do so. Local charities obviously do wonderful work in our community, but they too have faced many, many challenges this year. They need our help now more than ever. A great way to support a fantastic cause is the OC Transpo Loblaw Christmas Food Drive. This is a great tradition in our city. It's the 36th year for the event. It'll be held Saturday, December 19th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, working in close collaboration with Ottawa Public Health, the Ottawa Food Bank, and Loblaw Companies Limited, this year's food drive will incorporate extra health and safety measures to keep everyone as safe as possible. Residents are encouraged to donate non-perishable food items in the large Ottawa Food Bank bins located at participating Loblaws, Real Canadian Superstores, Your Independent Grocer, and No Frills across Ottawa. As recommended by OPH, this year's volunteers will not be handling food or monetary donations due to the ongoing pandemic. You can make an online donation between now and then at ottawafoodbank.ca/OCTranspo. Finally, before I close, I just wanted to remind everyone that our 4 outdoor refrigerated skating rinks, the Rink of Dreams right here at City Hall, the Lansdowne Park Skating Court, the Jim Tubman Chevrolet Rink at the Canterbury Community Centre, and the Ben Franklin Place Skating Rink are now open. I was at Lansdowne Park last week, and it was great to see people enjoying the rink and spending some time outdoors, and I've already seen people out for a skate right here at the Rink of Dreams. Access to the rinks will be on a first-come, first-served basis, and of course we will be following public health protocols. A reminder that each rink has its own capacity limits based on the size of the ice surface to ensure skaters can maintain proper physical distancing. And indoor public skating has also resumed with COVID-19 modifications at 11 city arenas with skating time by reservation only. Excuse me, more will be open during the holiday season. We're reminding participants that skaters must maintain physical distancing from those not in your household, and masks must be worn when you're off the ice. Physical activity, of course, is important to everyone's physical and mental health, and I hope to see many residents enjoying our rinks in all parts of the City of Ottawa and thanking those volunteers that run those rinks. I was mentioning earlier the great work of medical professionals, and before we hear from Dr. Etches, I want to recognize her work and the work of her team at Ottawa Public Health. Dr. Etches joined OPH in 2009 as Associate Medical Officer of Health and served as Deputy Medical Officer of Health before being appointed as our Medical Officer of Health in April of 2018. Prior to 2009, Dr. Etches served as an Associate Medical Officer of Health, Acting Medical Officer of Health, and Director of Clinical Studies at the Sudbury and District Health Unit in Northern Ontario. One of the bright lights during this pandemic has been the work of Dr. Etches along with her dedicated team of professionals at Ottawa Public Health. They have been working tirelessly throughout this pandemic to help keep our residents healthy and safe, and have guided us with expert scientific advice and encouragement through these really challenging times. They really are the true heroes of our community as we deal with this pandemic. Earlier this week, Dr. Etches sat down with veteran journalist Mark Sutcliffe, and I know we'll look forward to hearing from her now. So again, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and we look forward, hopefully in 2021, getting the Mayor's Breakfast back here at City Hall. Thank you, and over to Mark Sutcliffe and Dr. Etches.
Dr. Etches, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
How are you and your family, first of all?
We're doing well, and I would say thanks in large part to the schools being open. That's been very important for our little children to be able to get to school, and for our mental health continuing. Yeah, it is certainly a different year. We're much more isolated as a family, for sure. So that outdoor connection with others in the park, continues to be really important.
Was it a challenge in the spring when your kids were at home and you presumably were working from home, and like so many other families in our community?
Absolutely. I remember, we were just less patient with each other, with the kids, and we realized it even after they started being able to get to a summer camp, something was open, and we're like, oh, things seem really easy lately, So yeah, that was a big change for the whole community.
Yeah, less patient is a very kind way to describe the dynamics of what I think a lot of families, including mine, were going through in the spring with two parents at home working and kids trying to do schoolwork and needing attention and support and all of that. So it was a very challenging time. I wanted to talk a little bit about how Ottawa Public Health as an organization has responded to this crisis, because I think it's a really interesting example for businesses and other leaders in our community to observe. So tell me a little bit about how you and your team have adapted and how you've implemented your sort of emergency management procedures.
Yes, it is useful, of course, to have a continuity of operations plan. And for us, we use what's called an incident management approach. It's the same as first responders, police, fire, paramedics, and the city also uses an incident management approach where you identify an incident manager and you go much more into a fast decision-making, more directive way of managing and leading. Typically, public health is all about consensus building and taking the time to go through things and bring everyone on board. But in an emergency, you have to shift that way of leading. So we definitely had to redirect most of our team through this response, and many people stepped into new leadership roles. So we've learned, as we reflect and we ask people how they're doing, that the new supervisors, the leadership team in particular, needed more support than we were able to really build in. When people who'd never led a team before. At the same time, people have really shone. It's been an opportunity to really see people's skills, and I think that's really exciting in terms of being able to draw on everyone's capacity. What we found was we had a pandemic plan, but no one responds to a pandemic on their own. And so it emphasizes those linkages with the city, with the healthcare sector. And for us, what's become really clear through this pandemic response is the business sector needs to be a full partner in pandemic response into the future. So I would say we have grown our relationships with business associations through this response, and that's something we look forward to continuing into the future.
That's a really interesting point, because of course I think when there is a crisis in a community, typically it is the public sector that is getting together on a regular basis and sorting things out and communicating with each other, but sometimes there isn't that representative from business at the table, right?
And we see how interconnected we are. right? That businesses want to protect the health of their employees, their customers and clients, and we know that work is one of the most important things for people's health. So I definitely look forward to that ongoing collaboration.
You mentioned supporting the members of your team as they expanded their roles, moved into leadership responsibilities, and of course just supporting them in general, because this would have been a challenging time for them with demands at work being higher and demands at home being higher as well. So can you tell me more about what you did to support the new leaders on your team and just to support your employees in general?
Well, what we found was everyone was working in this emergency mindset for months, and it was too much. We needed to build into a more sustainable approach, and so actually that meant reorganizing our leadership team, the senior leadership team, and then all the departments. So we took a look, we said we're going to be in this response for a year plus. We need a more sustainable approach where the senior leaders divided up more of the work, so it wasn't all on that incident manager that I mentioned, one person leading the whole response. We split it out, and so made the sizes of teams manageable, people's roles clearer. So we've gone through that process, and that's hopefully going to carry us through, the promising next year where we have vaccines and we can get, progressively back to a more normal life.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what that will mean for businesses and employers in a moment. But that point you made, I think, is really interesting, because I think there was sort of an initial reaction that everybody had that was to switch to emergency mode. And for a period of time, we can excel in that environment, right? We can prioritize, we can simplify, we can focus in on what's most important, but it's very difficult to maintain that for a long period of time, right? And I think of, for example, the situations we've had as a community with flooding, where you can mobilize a group of people and they can be sandbagging and they can be supporting each other and dropping everything, but you can't do that for a year and a half, right? You have to move into something that's more sustainable.
Yes, and we typically see that our team is very engaged and supportive of one another. That's been important, but it's harder to do virtually. We certainly, like most companies, are trying to find a way to, how do you have social time on Zoom? These things, we're getting more creative to build new teams, but it's harder.
Have you learned anything in that area? Have you adapted in terms of how you've managed the team virtually?
Well, I think it is important to have a time maybe at the end of the day where there's no agenda, where we can find out how are the pets doing, and see a bit more about people's lives. Usually, that happens naturally in the work office, but we have to schedule it almost in this period.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day who has implemented a meeting periodically where they split everybody into groups and they say, talk about anything, as opposed to here's a specific topic, right? Just let people talk to each other and let the conversation flow, as it would in a physical workplace sometimes, but doesn't virtually.
Yes.
So what other lessons have you learned during this crisis about organizational management, about leadership, about your team, about things like that? What else comes to mind for you?
Well, I certainly want to thank the team. I think everyone's just worked with such dedication, really feels this responsibility and importance of helping. But I would like to point to the collaboration that's been needed. So all the members on our team working hard, but also with others. So I think the things I've learned have related to the importance of working with others in the community across organizations. So, for example, I think about the hospitals, and how they needed to stand up totally new services of testing, and under a lot of stress, and where the demand exceeded the supply, and really trying to work together through those things has been very valuable. The idea that we all have the same goal. We want testing to be accessible and simple, and I think this has been a foundation of relationships to continue. I mean, going into vaccination, we've learned a lot about how to work together. The other strong example is the Ottawa Health Team. So this is a new way the Government of Ontario is asking health agencies to work together, where you don't have as much of a barrier between organizations. So we have long-term care from Briere, the Ottawa Hospital, the community health centers, public health. And so as a new team saying, how do we meet the needs of the populations that have the highest risk of COVID? It's not one size fits all. We have approaches that the whole community is encouraged to take, the masks, the physical distancing, but then we have communities where it's not as easy to implement those behaviors or to stay home when you're sick, because people need to pay the rent and they need to get to work. And so this effort to go to communities where another language might be needed to communicate. The door-to-door approach might be important for people to understand the supports that help them decrease COVID transmission. That's been an effort not of one organization, but of this new joint Ottawa Health Team. And I think that is very promising, I think, for the future, that we could reorient our healthcare system to meet the needs where they are, rather than often, healthcare just exists and we go to the doctor or we go to a certain service provider. This is about making that much more accessible where needed.
So you mentioned communication there as a big part of what you've been doing, and I think it's interesting because there are many public sector organizations who don't need to communicate as much with the public as you do at Public Health, right? That's a big part of your responsibility in the community. And you have this great social media platform that you use, and some great people behind that, obviously. There's been a lot of feedback about that. So what have you learned about communicating with the public about marketing? Because I think there are some really good business lessons here. Your organization needs to think about the messages that it puts out to the community and the methods that it uses to communicate with the community, much like a business does in terms of getting people's attention, getting the right message across, and motivating them to behave in a certain way.
With communications, there's no one channel. I think that's something we've learned. We have to use many different communications channels, but following the principles of being as transparent as possible right from the beginning. And I think having one spokesperson so that you can be clear and people get to know you and can rely on the information that you're providing has been important, but using the different channels. So some traditional media interviews regularly, consistently people can understand the information, but the social media, Instagram's been important to reach younger populations. And then even the business communities networks have been important. I think that I can't speak to everyone, and it doesn't, I don't relate to everyone, but where different business networks or health networks or education networks, community agencies can spread the message in their own way, that's been very important. So we've paired our communications messages with the engagement of other spokespeople and other networks to extend it. I think video has been a big lesson for us too. Obviously, video message is more engaging than just text. So we'll continue to draw on these lessons.
Yeah, and I mean, there's an element of kind of behavioral science and all of those sorts of things that comes into this, right? In terms of how you motivate people to do the right thing, and what the content is and what the message is, what the right mix is. And I suppose it's different for different constituencies, but can you talk more about that?
Yes, I think we've been very deliberate in trying to acknowledge and thank people for what they're doing, because this has involved a lot of sacrifice, and it's difficult to stay isolated or to stay separate by 2 meters from everyone in our friends and family, and so really acknowledging that and thanking people for the hard work they're doing has been deliberate. We know most people are trying to protect others and trying to do the right thing. And so, you know, to build on that, encourage people, and then, you know, also to make sure people do have the information they need. It's interesting how the idea of enforcement comes up quite a bit, and you know, we've got to ticket people, or we've got to, and it's not going to be what solves the pandemic for us. It's not going to be what keeps transmission under control. It really is individuals' motivation to care for each other, to not be the source of an outbreak, you know, and so we want to focus on that.
All right, let's talk about where we stand and what's been working and what hasn't been working. I think the numbers recently have shown that things have gone a little bit better in Ottawa than they have in other parts of the province. What would you say is at the heart of that? And is it in part because in Ottawa we seem to be having success at getting employers to let their employees work from home? Is that an element of it?
I do think that it's been very helpful, although it's been harmful for some sectors. It's been helpful for people to be able to work from home. It just increases distance between people. It decreases the number of encounters people have, which is not to say that we can't find safer ways to get back into the office. That is possible as well. You know, I think there's no one reason why Ottawa was able to turn the curve again, but it does come down to, you know, are people creating that space between each other. Some of the public health things we've done, you know, have been supporting the mask wearing early, you know, so I think that making a mask sort of routine was one of the things we really worked on. You know, the first in big city in Canada to make it mandatory on public transit. So establishing those behaviors is just, this is how we're going to live for the next little while, and it'll get us through. I think it comes back to communications too, so using the different channels we have to alert the public to when we need to, you know, take a look and check our blind spots, and has been useful. We've never let up on making sure we do our public health work to try to follow up with everybody who tests positive and their contacts. And, you know, again, the business community has been very you know, helpful where we have situation if someone tests positive in a workplace. You know, we've worked with employers to make sure we collectively notify contacts and people are able to stay home. So that's been important, that work to continue to try to contain transmission in all of these settings. You know, it's challenging for workplaces for sure, but I think we need to follow the general principles where you know, if we can avoid crowding, avoid confined close contact, confined spaces, close contact, those things are important.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how at times some people have positioned the decisions we're making as a community as a choice between a public health objective and an economic objective. And personally, I think that's the wrong sort of framework to have the discussion around, because economic hardship can cause health consequences as well. And so I think there is a real challenge and an opportunity to move forward with a balanced approach that does not expose people to risk, obviously, but I think we have to acknowledge, and I think you have acknowledged, that if we were to shut down the whole economy in the name of preventing the spread of the coronavirus, that there would be harmful consequences of that to individuals as well, right?
Absolutely, and again, this is where I want to thank the business community for being willing to put in these measures that make, you know, restaurants, other workplaces as, you know, safe as possible. We want places to be open. There are places of employment, places of connection. We just need to approach them in a manner as safe as possible. So it isn't about economy or health. They go together. And we know that with the loss of employment, for example, and businesses that have lost savings, and it's incredibly stressful and definitely harmful to health. The government supports have been important, and we need to continue to help people through this pandemic. We we know, in fact, we're going to need to work together, public health and business communities, on the impact to health over the long term from unemployment and from the stresses that businesses have been through, that people may never be able to go back to some of their roles, and so helping people through a transition, making sure people understand there are supports. I'm quite concerned that people will lose hope about the future, and yet we know there are options. There are always options and supports available, not just for mental health, but that's important. There are virtual services. Please, anybody reach out to the Distress Center, and you can get referred to other supports. But also for the restarting of the economy and orienting, and getting businesses back open. I'm really interested in hearing what business sector's ideas are and how we can foster that collectively.
I think that's a really important point, because we, in anticipation of when this crisis is over, I think a lot of people have been looking forward to the day when we go back to normal. But I think we're really just going to enter another phase where we'll begin to see, to some extent, the toll that this has taken on people. And I think employers and business owners have to be ready for the fact that there will be some baggage that people will bring back to work with them in the next phase, right?
Yes, and innovation. I think that the private sector is often ahead, in terms of thinking of new ways of approaching things. And so that's my hope, is that we can find new ways of creating employment, new approaches that would help people get back on their feet.
Let's talk about vaccines, which are very top of mind, obviously, and I'm not going to ask you to tell us when we're going to receive them and or how soon we'll be able to move past this phase. But when we do get to that point, what advice do you have for employers and business owners regarding how they should manage their way through that phase? There are a couple of critical questions, obviously. Things like, should employers be allowed to require their employees to get the vaccines? And at what point can they start bringing people back to work after they've been vaccinated?
Yes, well, thank you. I agree. The vaccine is very important. We get an approved vaccine that's safe. It will enable people to have more security, that there is protection, especially for more vulnerable populations, older adults, people with health conditions, underlying health conditions. The typical approach in Canada has not been to mandate or require a vaccine. People have freedom of choice, and we value that. But I think as the data grows and people see the benefits of the protection, I hope that we will have great uptake. And we know it doesn't have to be perfect. We don't need 100% of the population to be immunized to be able to stop COVID transmission. So we'll be learning as we look at the protection that's provided first, probably in long-term care homes, but then businesses will be able to see how successful the vaccine can be to protect populations, and hopefully we'll work together again on promoting immunization. We've learned, as I mentioned, from the testing, we need to make it as accessible as possible. So again, as we move out into immunizing the whole population, ideas for how to promote that access will be important. We may well move into private sector providers like pharmacies, as we saw with the testing eventually. So I think this will be an ongoing conversation, but an important one.
So an employer obviously can't require an employee to get a vaccine, but could an employer at a certain point say, if you don't get the vaccine, you can't come back into the workplace? Is that a possibility?
I think those kinds of policies will be considered, especially if you are in a workplace where there are more vulnerable people. Absolutely. I think we need to protect each other, just like we need to have policies that you must wear a mask, or work from home. These kinds of things may come.
What other advice do you have for businesses as they look ahead to 2021 with the expectation that at some point next year that they will be going back in the direction of having people in their workspaces, reopening, those sorts of things. What advice do you have to them about planning that?
I think we still need to plan for as much distance between each other in the workplace as possible, because we're not going to have a vaccine for everyone immediately in the first quarter, or, maybe more into the second quarter, or into the fall. And so we do know that that's a long time. We expect people to go back to workplaces. So the very basics that we're doing now matter in terms of making sure you screen actively every day. As you come into the workplace, make sure you don't have a headache, a fever, a cough, the subtle symptoms of COVID, making sure people can work from home or have the ability to stay home if they have those symptoms. That's the first barrier. And then the mask use, we'll keep an eye on it, but I think for the time being, we're still going to need masks. And then that distance is another layer of protection. We've seen in the school environment, adding up these layers of protection helped, so that we haven't had evidence of widespread transmission in schools. The same can be achieved in workplaces. People practicing these things will be able to return to work.
Do you have any other message you want to share with the business community and with business leaders in Ottawa?
I need to say thank you again. I mean, you can't say it enough. It's been really helpful to have their input and perspective, and I think that we're continuing to be open to hear what we can do to improve our response, to advocate with the province about things that would help business sector, because we do understand that keeping people employed has got to be a public health goal.
Dr. Etches, I want to thank you and your team for your leadership on this really important issue and through this crisis in 2020. All the best to you and your family over the holidays, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Michael Curran, publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal. On behalf of Mayor Jim Watson, the Ottawa Board of Trade, the Ottawa Business Journal, I want to sincerely thank Dr. Vera Etches for her interview this morning. Dr. Etches and her team at Ottawa Public Health deserve our gratitude for their tireless work over the past several months to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. What a remarkable job. To demonstrate our appreciation, a gift will be provided to Dr. Etches from our Royal LePage commercial, our speaker gift sponsor. I want to specifically thank Matt Jacques and Jim Carty from Royal LePage commercial for their support. Also, thanks to my business partner, Mark Sutcliffe, a founder of the Ottawa Business Journal, for conducting this morning's interview. Great job as always, Mark. 2020 marks an important milestone for the Ottawa Business Journal. It was 25 years ago, in the summer of 1995, that OBJ was founded. As I think back over this period, I remember the dozens of people who have worked so hard to make OBJ what it is today. Hundreds of events, thousands of newspapers and magazines, tens of thousands of online news articles, hundreds of thousands of social media messages and newsletters. Thanks to the talent and ingenuity of the team, OBJ remains more relevant than ever as we embrace online events, videos, and podcasts. Despite all of the challenges in our platforms, one thing remains constant: OBJ's commitment to keep business leaders informed about the local economy. It's this commitment that keeps us going. A big thanks to everyone in OBJ's audience. Please stay tuned for even better things to come. As we wrap up this morning, let's recognize our sponsors one more time. Our lead sponsor, Hydro Ottawa, Commissionaires Ottawa, the Westin Ottawa, Algonquin College, La Cité, Rogers Communications, RBC, Enbridge, our global event sponsor, Oakwood Designers and Builders, our gift sponsor, Royal LePage Commercial, our coffee sponsor, Capital Office Interiors and Steelcase, our door prize sponsor, the Ottawa Senators Hockey Club, and our caterers for the event, the Centurion Conference and Event Center. Before we conclude our final Mayor's Breakfast of 2020 and the last event of the year for OBJ and the Board of Trade, we want to leave you with a special message. Here's the Chair of the Ottawa Board of Trade, Ian Sherman. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, have a safe and wonderful holiday season.
In the year of a pandemic, a tragic year for so many, I recently read that Collins Dictionary unveiled the word of the year, lockdown, explaining that it encapsulates the shared experience of billions of people who have had to restrict their daily lives in order to contain the coronavirus. Others have chosen a different word to describe 2020, one that we speak to daily at the Ottawa Board of Trade: resilience, a word that encapsulates, perhaps in an even deeper and often emotional sense, the shared experience of billions of people this year. And while resilience is the quality that was summoned in us by all the challenges of 2020, resilience is going to be just as relevant, if not even more relevant, when the pandemic is over. Resilience is the quality that is going to carry us forward into 2021. At the Ottawa Board of Trade, led by our President and CEO, Su-Ling Ching, and our devoted staff, we are not looking to simply bounce back and conquer the deep uncertainty, anxiety, and challenges created by the adversity of this pandemic and the resultant lockdown. We need to bounce forward and to become even stronger. Yes, we pray that a vaccine will bring this tragic pandemic to an end. However, we need to continue to recognize the fact that our individual and collective resilience is a vaccine that we already have in our immune system to manage the inevitable ups and downs of life. As our business community enters the next phase of economic recovery, the Ottawa Board of Trade developed #OttawaNext as a go-to resource to help local business leaders empower themselves. Ottawa Next is about connecting businesses to the right answers, opportunities, and support quickly and easily during this next phase of recovery. And in particular, as Ottawa's small and medium-sized businesses are bearing the brunt in our fight against COVID-19, this holiday season is an opportunity to specifically provide them with some support from all of us. We need these SMEs to survive the upcoming winter season in order to contribute to our recovery. It is up to all of us. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Ottawa Board of Trade, we thank Su-Ling and her dedicated team of staff and volunteers for the incredible work throughout 2020, as well as the work we know that lies ahead of us into 2021. Further, we thank all our community partners, including Mayor Watson and his council colleagues and city staff, for their ongoing encouragement, collaboration, and support. The Ottawa Board of Trade started to scale up our advocacy work in early 2020, consistent with the strategic imperatives that we established as a Board of Trade following the successful implementation of our consolidation. COVID-19 caused us to both elevate and augment our work, including our accountability to the Ottawa business community. Through these efforts, in collaboration with many community partners, we have come to recognize that the strength of our resilience, together with our COVID courage, offers us a chance at true transformation, allowing us to go deeper, connect with what we truly value, and to grow and expand Ottawa as the best place in the world to live, play, work, and invest. We do so through an ongoing spirit of partnership and engagement with our business and community leaders, working to leverage our strengths and optimizing our collective resources with every size of business and at every level of government. Through strategic focus, disciplined and cooperative objectives, strong partnerships, and the articulation of appropriate advocacy and representations at all levels of government, we will continue to fuel our future and contribute to our leadership responsibilities as the voice for business in Ottawa and throughout the National Capital Region. To everyone in our great community, as we cherish the gift of Ottawa through what I'm sure will be an emotional holiday season, I wish you, based on your observance, a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year 2021. But most of all, I wish you safety, security, strength, health, courage, and resilience.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The sun goes down in Pasadena and I feel alive. I feel like I'm dreaming and the sun comes up and I'm still sleeping and alone.
Due to the length of the preceding program, we now join the regularly scheduled program already in progress.